Hey guys, welcome back to Real Housewives Recaps. Today, you know what? I am so excited because we're going to be talking about Christmas Vacation. I just wanted to do something special to say thank you to each of you and to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays and happy whatever you're celebrating. 2020 sucks. Let's make it fun. So let's talk about Christmas Vacation, my favorite Christmas movie of all time. We're going to be talking about it. I'll be dropping some facts in here, telling you my opinions, all that good stuff, and just having a good time. So grab a hot chocolate and a Christmas cookie or two, and let's talk about Christmas Vacation. Okay, so we got Chevy Chase as Clark, Beverly D'Angelo as Ellen, Juliette Lewis as Audrey, Johnny Galecki as Rusty, John Randolph as Clark Sr., Diane Ladd as Nora, E.G. Marshall as Art, Doris Roberts, I love her, as Frances, Randy Quaid as Cousin Eddie, Miriam Flynn as Cousin Catherine, and Cody Berger as Rocky, and Ellen Ladson as Ruby Sue. So I'm obsessed with this movie. I don't want to tell you my age, but I did go see this in the theater. I was very young, but I did go see it in the theater, and I remember going with my mom, and we liked it so much, we ended up bringing my dad back that same night, so it's one of those ones that, actually it might be the only time I saw the same movie twice in the same day, but it was so good. I really enjoyed it, and it stuck with me through childhood. Even now, I make my daughter watch it, and it's just so fun. So we got the Griswold family here, and it's Clark and Ellen, Rusty and Audrey, and I believe this is the third of the National Lampoon series, and by far my favorite. You know, I know I'm probably standing alone here, but I actually love Vegas Vacation, too. I watched that one quite a bit, but anyway, so Christmas Vacation. We're mostly going to stick positive here, but I have to address the elephant in the room, which is every time I would read a fact about this movie, they would kind of allude to what a jerk Chevy Chase was. I'm going to pretend to ignore that because I love him in this movie, but yeah, there's a lot of stories out there. The first director set for the movie was Chris Columbus, and he met with Chevy, and it went so poorly that he dropped out. And he says at the time he was completely broke and living with his in-laws, but he just couldn't do it. He said it was so bad, the meeting with Chevy. So he dropped out, but lucky for him, 2 weeks later, he got the script for Home Alone. And he ended up taking that on, and there you go. That's another great Christmas movie, Home Alone. So Jeremy, I'll never say his last name right, but it's like Chick, I believe, ended up taking it on as his first feature directorial debut. And fun fact, when Chevy Chase is in bed with the sap scene, he's on the cover of the magazine. So that's the guy that ended up directing the film, and he said he had a great time. Okay, so the whole movie is set in Chicago. And while a lot of it was filmed there, these scenes, and when he goes to find the Great Griswold Christmas tree, was actually filmed in Breckenridge, Colorado. The script was written by John Hughes, who is a fantastic writer, and a lot of his stuff takes place in Chicago. So that's one of the reasons for the whole Chicago theme. Budget on the movie was $25 million. The idea for this movie came out of a short story that John Hughes wrote called Christmas 59. So there's a little Easter egg when Clark's in the attic watching the old movies. One of them's labeled Christmas 59. So Juliette Lewis was 15 when she was filming this. Johnny Galecki, I didn't see his age, but the thing I read about him is this was the first time he put himself on tape and he sent it in to try to play Rusty. So they flew him out, and it was his first time to Los Angeles. And he immediately got to read with Chevy, and it went so well that Chevy ended up telling him right there in the room that he got the part. So he was over the moon and thrilled about it. Okay, let's take a break from facts for a second and talk about what's going on in the movie. So they're out to pick the Griswold family Christmas tree. They it's a yearly tradition, and these awful people cut him off. They get into a road rage incident. He ends up under this truck. I love Ellen. I'm going to call them by their character names. I love Ellen in this scene because she's praying out loud. And they end up coming out from under this truck, jumping a snowbank, and it's just so funny to me. I crack up even watching it right now. So they land in this snowbank, and they come skidding to a halt to go find the Christmas tree. And you see when they land, the kids are in the front seat where they were in the back seat, and it's just a pretty funny scene to me. So beautiful scenery, again, shot around Breckenridge. Love these scenes, absolutely gorgeous. They trek out to find the most perfect tree. Clark has to have the most perfect tree, and they walk and walk. And the whole time Audrey's saying, oh, my eyes are numb, my feet are numb, I can't feel my hips. They find the perfect Christmas tree, and they all fall in love, and Rusty reminds them, did we bring a saw? So that's pretty funny. They talk about what a beauty the tree is, and Audrey's frozen. And Ellen says, she'll see it later, dear. Her eyes are frozen. Get a shot of this big, beautiful Christmas tree loaded up on the family station wagon, ready to go, roots and all. Okay, so we finally get to go to the Griswold house, which I absolutely love. P.S. Their next-door neighbors are Todd and Margo. They're played, of course, by Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Nicholas Guest. And I love them. I think they're so much fun. Now, fun fact, their house is the house used as the Murtaugh house in Lethal Weapon. It's the same set. So we see Clark out here. He's ready to trim the tree, and immediately we find out that his family and Todd and Margo do not get along. So one of my favorite lines of the movie, Todd says, where are you going to fit a tree that big, Griswold? And he says, bend over and I'll show you. You have a lot of nerve talking to me like that. I wasn't talking to you. Oh, God, I love this movie. Okay. He's so excited to trim the tree and set it up in the living room, and it just doesn't quite fit. But that's okay. It's still a gorgeous tree. He's still excited about it. Then we see him in bed talking to Ellen, and they're talking about, are you sure you want to do all this? Are you sure you want to have all the family over? It's not too late to cancel. And Clark's like, no, we need to do this. Let's do this. He just gets so excited about the holidays. Meanwhile, he's covered in sap. P.S. There's a director on the front of the People magazine. But he's covered in sap, so everything's sticking to his hand, and it's a cute scene. Unfortunately, there are a lot of stories of Beverly D'Angelo and Chevy Chase just not getting along, but I'm going to ignore that part too and say, look how cute they are. So here's the advent calendar that we see throughout the movie. I love it. I think this was my first introduction to an advent calendar and how they work, counting down Christmas. But it's also a great way to keep the story going so you can tell what day or how many days before Christmas it is. This is Bill, played by Sam McMurray. He had roles in Raising Arizona and Drop Dead Gorgeous, and I just remember him from the 80s and 90s. This is their boss at the Food Additives Company, and his name is Mr. Shirley. He's played by Brian Doyle Murray, and he is Bill Murray's brother. He and Chevy Chase were in Caddyshack together. Okay, so Mr. Shirley is a hard ass, and the whole point of this movie, well, not the whole point, but one of the big themes of the movie here is all about Clark is waiting for his Christmas bonus so he can put in a pool. He's a family man. He wants to take care of his family, and this is his dream to put in a pool. And he needs this Christmas bonus check to cover the down payment that a check that he wrote. So, a lot riding on that. Sounds like he already spent the money. He's just waiting for it to come back in. This is Mary, played by Nicolette Scorsese. Now, she had a few roles in things like Boxing Helena and NYPD Blue. Now, Clark is shopping for gifts and absolutely loses his mind when he starts talking to her. Pretty funny scene here. He starts blotting his head with the undies because she works at a counter at somewhere like Macy's or something. And he's just really getting a kick out of talking to her. We, of course, see her in a later scene in the pool, but pretty funny scene here. So we're back at the house, and it's a beautiful winter day. Love seeing this. We see everybody chilling. It's like the calm before the storm. Everybody's, doing their thing, getting ready for all the Christmas festivities coming up. We see everybody getting ready, and you hear ding dong, and it's the family. It's the parent, each set of parents. So it starts out with Merry Christmas, and then all of a sudden it just chaos, just complete chaos. Everybody's running around being grandparents. Clark's mom is offering the kids a whole quarter if they'll rub her painful burrs for her. And showing people the mole on her neck. And oh my gosh, they're all just a mess. And it's so much fun. And immediately I think Clark's realizing what he's done, inviting everybody. Scene with his mom really cracks me up with the things that she's doing there. He says he'll help with the bags and be outside for the season. So then we see him and Rusty outside, and it's time to work on the Christmas lights because he likes to go all out for Christmas. So you see him with this huge box of lights, and it's just a funny scene here because he's handing off the lights to Rusty, and he says, "Oh, little knot," and we see this knot, and it is just unbelievably comically big. There's Todd and Margo. So Todd and Margo say that they want to see Clark fall off his roof and break his neck, and Todd says, "I'm sure he'll fall, but I don't think we'll be lucky enough to have him break his neck." So Clark's on the roof, and he's working on his Christmas lights, and for the life of me, I do not understand. He decides he's going to use a staple gun to hang up these Christmas lights. So I just think, what a pain in the ass. How do you take those down? That would be a nightmare. But that's what he's doing. So we see him staple his shirt to the roof, or to the awning there. And, comedy ensues. There's lots of falling down moments. The ladder collapses on itself. The ladder starts to fall backwards. He's kind of hanging up there. Managed to save himself, and all is right in the world. Meanwhile, we go over to the inside. It's Ellen and Audrey. They're cooking dinner for the family. Audrey's pissed, saying, "Can't the grandparents please stay at a hotel?" And how sick and twisted it is. She has to sleep with her brother. And Ellen says, "Well, I'm sleeping with your father." So and then Ellen says, "It's Christmas. We're all in misery." So Ellen is all stressed out. She starts smoking, and immediately her mom can sense it and yells, "Ellen, are you smoking?" And she says, "No." And we see her chop the head of lettuce. So it's nighttime. Clark and Rusty are still working on these Christmas lights, and Clark is just a mess. So he's up there. He's trying to get all the lights. It's 15,000. Is it 20? No, 25,000 twinkle lights all set up. And he falls off the roof. He starts to slide down the roof, and he catches himself on the gutter and perfectly, luckily, saves himself. But the gutter starts to bend, and this, javelin of ice shoots out. It ends up shooting into Todd and Margo. I'm going to say their names like that because it cracks me up, but Todd and Margo's house, and ruins their stereo system, and it's a great scene. Clark falls into the bushes. Ellen comes out to tell him dinner's ready, and he's like, "Great, I'm starving," from yelling out of the bushes. Meanwhile, Todd and Margo's house, they're trying to figure out why the stereo is all destroyed and why the carpet is all wet. And they get really pissed, and they realize, oh, it's the Griswolds. So Clark thinks he's ready to go. Why he didn't test this out beforehand, I do not understand. But he tries to plug in the lights, and we all know how this goes. Everybody's waiting and freezing and in the snow, and Clark just can't get it lit. Just nothing is working out for Clark. He cannot figure it out. He's trying. He's trying to get him to do a drum roll. And the lights just aren't working. So nothing's working out. Nothing's lighting up. Ellen's mom is drunk and laughing and saying, talk about pissing your money away. So everybody goes to bed, but poor Clark is still up there working. Nothing's working out. He cannot figure out if he has to check all the bulbs, because this is back in the day that if one bulb went out, then your entire strand was ruined. So the next day, Clark is going up in the attic to hide presents. So we see some physical comedy here where he gets hit in the head with a ladder. When he's walking around upstairs, he's hit in the head by some boards, and just lots of physical comedy going on. So he's up there and it's cold, and Ellen's mom is walking around downstairs, and she realizes, she says, where's that cold coming from? She sees that the ladder is down. She doesn't even think that, oh, hey, somebody could be in the attic, and she goes ahead and closes it up, thereby trapping Clark. So he's stuck up there. So he's stuck. The rest of the family is loading up. They're going to go get they're going to do some last minute shopping and get some lunch. And they're asking where Clark is. Nobody can find him. And her dad is saying, I have to go eat so I can take my back pills. So thereby they leave Clark. So he too late figures out that he can open the window and yell out Ellen, but she doesn't hear him. They're already on their way. This is before cell phones. Yeah, you get the idea. So he's stuck up in the attic. So I absolutely love this movie. I've probably seen 100,000 times. I will be honest, this is my least favorite part of the movie. It slows down a little bit here. He finds some clothes to dress up in. We saw the physical comedy. He pulls out these old films of his family growing up, that sort of thing. And he's watching that, and he's getting teary-eyed. But to me, it drags out a little bit. So I'm going to skip over this part. The Christmas 59 Easter egg I was telling you about, that's what the short story was originally called. So the family returns home from shopping, and Ellen is going to hide some presents up in the attic. So we see him having this moment of watching these videos and crying, and she's going to put the presents away. She pulls on the door, and we see him instantly fall. Todd and Margo are having an evening at home. They've just worked out. They allude to things moving up to the bedroom after showers, so we know that's setting up for something. So we're back over to Clark, who is trying to figure out what the heck is going on with these lights and why nothing is working. He and Ellen are really trying to figure out what's going on, if it's the lights, the cables, what's happening. So it's just one thing after another, and he's so frustrated he can't figure it out. He's messing around with the lights. He turns on some switch, which he's not out there because he's with the switches, and it turns on the lights. And it blinds Todd and Margo. So their intimate night is ruined, and it's hilarious. It's his mom, I think, that flips on the switch maybe in the garage or something that makes the outlet work. So Ellen's able to see it. She calls him to come look. He's not there. He's tinkering with the other lights. And meanwhile, they're completely blinded. And it's just such a cute scene. So we see the 25,000 twinkle lights all lit up. And he, of course, does not get to see it because he's tinkering with the lights. So his mom ends up switching the switch back off, again, not realizing what's happening. So by the time he goes out there, nothing's working. So Ellen goes back out there to look to figure out what's going on. She switches the switch back on, and there's the lights. So it's just such a great scene. It's so funny. He's so excited to see his white lights all lit up, his beautiful house. And again, this outlet just makes me crazy. It just looks like the biggest fire hazard I've ever seen. But so funny. His reactions, his faces, love it. The family hears him hollering. They race out to see what's going on. Again, Ellen's not realizing that it's a switch either quite yet, so she flips it back off, and it goes dark. We see Todd fall down the stairs, carrying a tray, and Margo's freaking out. The family comes out in time to see that it's not lit up. So again, the old men especially are crotchety, like, why are you calling us out here? What's going on? And Clark's just losing it. He's getting so mad. He just doesn't understand why nothing's working quite right. The family's watching, and Clark is fully having a meltdown. He ends up punching Santa and his reindeer, and funny note on this is he broke his, I believe they said it was his pinky while filming this scene, but he stayed in character, and that's why he started doing a lot of kicking, and I guess the director thought it was so funny they ended up using that take. So he actually broke his finger during this part. But so we see finally Ellen realizes it's the switch. She flips it back on. The house is all lit up. Finally, everybody can enjoy it and see it. Clark is just so excited to have the house lit up like this. He's hugging everybody, and he's saying, I'm so glad that you were able to be here. I hope this adds to your enjoyment of the season. And he's walking around giving all the family a hug, and all of a sudden you see this, and you're like, what? It's Cousin Catherine and Cousin Eddie. So Cousin Catherine she's Ellen's cousin, and this is her husband Eddie, and oh my God. They make the film. Eddie especially makes this film to me. It's so funny. So they're the black sheep, redneck, whatever you want to call it, cousins. And they rolled in their RV. They have their 2 children with them. It's Rocky and Ruby Sue, as well as they say, pride and joy, their dog Snots. Rocky has a lip fungus they haven't identified yet. And Ruby Sue, they said her eyes aren't crossed anymore. They said gets kicked by a mule, eyes go crossed, falls in a well, eyes go uncrossed. I don't know. They asked about the older kids. One is getting cured off the wild turkey, and one is barking for the yak woman in the circus. So Catherine explains that she wanted to call, let them know they were coming, but Eddie really wanted it to be a surprise. So they drove all this way, and oh my gosh, we find out later that that's not exactly what's happening. They lost their house, they just had the RV, and they rolled into town on fumes. So of course, Clark and Ellen invite him to stay, and the kids and the dog and the whole thing. So, yeah. So we have Cousin Eddie and Clark, and this scene is particularly funny because if you listen, Clark is saying a lot of really funny things really quickly under his breath. He says, "Can I refill your eggnog? Take you out to the middle of nowhere, leave you for dead?" He says, Eddie's talking about what a surprise it is, and Clark says, "I couldn't be any more surprised if I woke up with my head sewn to the carpet." We see that Snots is drinking water from the tree, so Clark's kind of freaking out about that because he knows that it'll kill the tree and he doesn't want the tree to die. So that sets up some later hilarity. They talk a little bit more about the RV, and Cousin Eddie says, "Don't you go falling in love with it. We're taking it with us when we leave here next month." And Clark chokes on his eggnog. We go over to Clark's office where his boss, Mr. Shirley, is on the phone. Clark comes in to give him a present, and Mr. Shirley makes it so awkward and uncomfortable and silent. And we see a funny present wrapped up, and Mr. Shirley couldn't care less and says, "Put it over there with the other ones, greaseball." And we see that everybody seems to have gotten him the same gift because they're all wrapped the identical way. Clark's asking if his report that he did for Mr. Shirley helped out at the trade show, and Mr. Shirley can't even answer him straight. He's like, "I'm sure it did." He doesn't care. I think Clark's hovering to try to see if they'll talk about Christmas bonus. He does not at all. It's awkward, so Clark has to leave. Okay, so then we go to a family sledding night. So this was one of the shots that they did first of the movie, and this was also shot right outside of Breckenridge. So we see that Clark, part of his job is it's a spray that you put on to make milk not penetrate cereal, basically, but it makes his sled super fast. We see him shooting through the snow like a fireball behind him, and his family's watching, and it's just a pretty funny scene. Ends with Clark crashing into a donation bin outside of a Walmart. So back at the office, this is where we really find out what's going on with Clark. So he's asking Bill, it's the last day they're working before, the Christmas holiday. And he's asking Bill, did you get your Christmas bonus yet? And he says, well, my kid says somebody showed up, some messenger showed up at the house, so I'm sure that's it. And Clark explains that he really needs his check to come through to cover the pool expense. So, so that's where the stress is for Clark, and that's why he's so freaked out about this Christmas bonus, and kind of why he's been short with everybody and just really wanting this all to work out. So that night back at the house, he's stressing about his bonus. He's thinking about what's going on, imagining what it'd be like to have the pool, imagining the family enjoying the pool, and just, I think, basically willing it all to work out. He has a very disturbing image of Cousin Eddie in his Speedo with his tank top tucked into it. It's frightening. Then he imagines Mary, the sales girl that he met, that he really found attractive. He imagines her at the pool, and we see him imagining her, like, stripping down, at the pool, and his thoughts are quickly interrupted because Ruby Sue comes up. Ruby Sue says, Santa Claus, and he's startled. It's like, no, I'm not Santa Claus. And basically we find out here that she's worried. She said she's awake because Rocky bit her thumb. And they're both kids are worried because they don't know if Santa's coming this year. And Clark's trying to tell her, no, if you've been good, he'll come. And she said, we were good all last year and he didn't come. We didn't do nothing and we still got the shaft. So Clark's realizing that Eddie and Catherine may not be able to provide for Ruby Sue and Rocky this year. The next morning, Clark comes down for breakfast. He sees a very loud scene with his family, kind of arguing with each other, just being noisy. So he avoids that room. He goes to look out the window. Ellen says good morning. They kind of talk about what's going on with Eddie and the kids and how they can help and make sure that Santa visits the kids. Meanwhile, he sees Eddie outside in his bathrobe pumping his toilet into, I guess it's the sewer line down below, and it's so, or drainage, it's so gross. It's just completely disgusting. It's a terrible idea, as we see later. It's just, oh God, such a funny scene. Todd comes out for a run and immediately smells it and runs back inside the house, and Eddie's out there yelling, "Shitter's full." It's just such a great scene. Okay, so if you want some interesting Googling, you should Google Randy Quaid and look into him. I'm sure you all have heard, but in case you haven't, he has a very fascinating story, we'll say. He seems to have lost his damn mind, basically. He was married to his first wife and had a daughter, and that didn't work out. They went their separate ways. He says he had a delayed adolescence and he didn't want to be tied down. So that happened. And then he remarried his second wife, who he seems to currently be married to, Evie. And this is the one you need to look up, the two of them, because they're the ones that you see. They've been arrested a lot, we'll say, for things like squatting and some claims they've made of, I believe, being stalked, and you need to Google that. I'll leave you with this. He believes that there's this group called Star Whackers out, and they're the ones that killed Heath Ledger, and that they're quite possibly coming for him. So grab your tinfoil hats, jump on the Google machine, and have fun. Waste an hour of your life doing that, because it's an interesting read. So here Clark is saying that he and Ellen want to give the kids a nice Christmas this year, and Eddie, at first is like, I don't know, but he's like, that's just a real nice surprise, just a real nice surprise. So after that, he pulls out a list and says, here's a list alphabetical starting with Catherine, meaning you should get her and Eddie gifts as well. And he says, if it's not too much to ask, I'd like to get you something real nice. Oh my God. So he wants Clark to spend money on getting himself and Ellen presents too. Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's getting closer. I believe it's Christmas Eve. And so this is where we see Aunt Bethany arrive. It's Louis and Aunt Bethany. And oh my God, the hilarity ensues. So they come in and they are played by Mae Questel and William Hickey. And they are just so funny. Bethany especially just really cracks me up because she's just so happy and excited, but she is just completely clueless as to what's going on. She's saying things like, I love riding in cars, and when did you move to a new house? And they didn't. And did Rusty join the Navy? No, Aunt Bethany. Uncle Luce's hair comes out in his hat, so they're trying to fix that without him noticing. And it's just one thing after another. Well, we find out that Bethany wrapped up, well, to quote them, she wrapped up her damn cat. Ellen explains she's old, she gets confused, they don't have much money, so they wrap up things around their house to give away. So they wrap up the cat, and they have to end up, of course, opening the box. They said they have to go ahead and open it because they can't leave the cat in the box. And then the other one is leaking. And Ellen sticks her finger in the package to see what the heck is leaking out. If you watch closely, Eddie sucks it off her finger. It's so disgusting. She genuinely looks shocked. And he says, it's lime. And it's her Jell-O mold. Oh, it's so gross. So then they go to have a nice Christmas Eve dinner, and in true Griswold fashion, it doesn't go to plan either. Since Aunt Bethany's the oldest one there, they ask her to say grace, and she says, Grace died 30 years ago. And they're saying, the blessing. So she starts saying, pledge allegiance to the flag. So Clark puts his hand over his heart, Eddie stands up. That's how that goes. Clark goes to carve the turkey, and it completely collapses. Catherine starts crying and says, I told you we put it in too early. And it's just left with, like, the crispy skin, I guess. Nothing inside. It's just completely burnt. Cousin Eddie says, save the neck for me, Clark. So Clark basically has to cut off pieces of just the skin and pass it around to everybody. This is one of my favorite things to watch closely because if you pay attention, each one of them is eating it differently. It's Clark's mom is trying to bite into it and struggling, so she dips it in her water glass. Ellen is actually flinging the skin off of her fork and then pretending to eat it. So it's a great scene. Cousin Eddie takes a big scoop of sweet potatoes, takes a bite out of it right there, decides he likes it, and then dishes it on his plate. It's so disgusting. The kids are kind of fighting and throwing food back and forth. So they had to let that cat out, and we see the cat start playing with the Christmas lights on the tree. Oh my goodness, that cat. There are hilarious facial expressions all the way around the table. Clark takes a bite of Aunt Bethany's Jell-O mold. He looks at it closely, and he realizes there's cat food in there. So he says, Aunt Bethany, does your cat like Jell-O mold? And Eddie says, I don't know about the cat, but I sure am enjoying it. We see the cat nibbling further on the Christmas lights. Clark tells the kids that Santa's sleigh was spotted on a radar, and they're so excited and really excited that Santa's nearby. And Uncle Eddie says, you serious, Clark? And Eddie shoots some daggers. So then we start hearing some commotion under the table, and not sure what's going on. You hear these god-awful noises. They start to look, and it's Snots. And Clark says, Eddie, what's wrong with the dog? And Eddie says, Nah, he's just nosing through the trash. Probably got stuck on a bone. And then you hear this awful yakking noise, and he says, oh, he got it up. So Clark and Ellen in the very next scene, you see them going to check to see what's going on with the trash, and it is everywhere. So they have to stop their meal to go clean up all this trash that this dog that they didn't want there has left everywhere. So then Clark is going back into the living room, and he notices his tree is unplugged. So he starts plugging everything back in. You guys, this is where we get the fried pussycat scene. Let me tell you about this. Apparently the studio was not into this at all. They did not want this scene. So the director kept sending the writer, John Hughes, to go deal with it. And John Hughes kept sticking up for the director, saying, no, it's funny. It's not cruel. It's just funny. And it ended up staying in the movie. So that's how we got that. The fact I forgot to tell you, too, is in the last scene with the dinner, especially with Aunt Bethany and Uncle Lewis, when, they're talking. There was an earthquake that day on set. It was a surprise earthquake. Nobody expected it. So while they were filming, an earthquake happened. This is where Cousin Eddie says that cat had 9 lives. He just spent all of them. And it's fried pussycat. That's what he says. So Ellen is trying to distract everybody else and get them out of the living room. And Cousin Eddie and Clark have to get the chair out of the house. Here that we see the green light happening, so we know something is going on where Cousin Eddie pumped the sewer, pumped into the, I don't know. He made a mistake there with that toilet. So everybody's sitting around after dinner, and Uncle Lewis is smoking his stogie. And, oh my gosh, he lights himself on fire. So he's standing too close to the tree, so the tree goes up in flames too. And you just see this huge fireball explosion while Clark is enjoying his dessert. So it's just one thing after another, and the tree is completely toast. When Clark asks Lewis what happened, Lewis says, it was an ugly tree anyway. So just when everybody thinks Clark is going to absolutely freak out because he loved this tree and because everything that has happened through the holidays, they get a knock on the door, and it's a messenger. And he says basically that this envelope fell between the seats of his car and he didn't see it and he's sorry. And Clark is so happy because it's his Christmas bonus. It's the one he's been looking for and waiting for this whole time. So before he opens it, he goes ahead and makes the announcement. He says, with this bonus check, he is putting in a pool. So the whole family celebrates. He says, that's it. That's the big one. And he's putting in this pool. And he says, if there's enough left over, I'm going to fly you all here to christen the pool. And Eddie says, I can't swim. And Clark says, I know that, Eddie. I know that. So finally, Clark opens it, and he's in shock. And he's making these weird noises, and the family's not quite sure what's going on. And Ellen's trying to lighten the mood. She says, is it bigger than you thought? And everybody laughs, and Clark's not really saying much. And she says, is it smaller? And it turns out that Frank Shirley got them all a enrollment to Jelly of the Month Club. And Eddie says, that's the gift that keeps on giving. That it is, Edward, that it is. So this is where Clark absolutely loses it. He tears it to shreds. He's had enough. And he says, if anybody's looking for a last-minute present for me, I'd like my boss, Frank Shirley, brought here with a big red bow. So, he's just venting. He's talking to his family about what an ass his boss is, and he'd really like to confront him. Well, Cousin Eddie takes him a little too literally, so we see Cousin Eddie sneak off. So when I was doing the research of this film, this scene came up a lot. He gives a big, long speech about, he's just so angry about everything. Of all the dickless, heartless, hopeless sack of monkey shit, all the stuff he says. So we find out that to remember all the things he's supposed to say, the actors actually wore signs So they would hung down just out of shot of the camera. So when Chevy Chase is screaming all these things, he's actually looking at their chest areas where the signs were hanging to see all the words he's supposed to say in this impassioned monologue. So Clark just completely loses it. He goes outside. He cranks up the chainsaw. Ellen's trying to calm him down. She ends up throwing her glass of eggnog into the bushes, which always makes me laugh. P.S. I have those glasses. I love the moose glasses so much. I went online. I bought them because they're fantastic. But so he's saying they need another tree. So he goes to cut down a tree. While cutting down the tree actually falls into Todd and Margo's house. It crashes through the window. They're having these margaritas and saying, they wish they had gotten a tree. And right at that moment, the tree actually crashes through the window because of Clark. So we go back to Clark, who is washing his hands after cutting down this tree, and Ellen says, "May I remind you that this was all your idea?" And he says, No, I'm perfectly aware. And he's absolutely acting crazy. She asks him why he's not blinking, and he's walking around with his chainsaw. He ends up fixing the newel post by just completely sawing it off. It appears as though things have finally settled down. They have their tree, they're sitting around, Clark's putting out the presents. Aunt Bethany, who can't hear anything, is saying, "What's that squeaking sound? What's that racket?" And Lewis says, "You couldn't hear a dump truck and a nitroglycerin plant." And they kind of dismiss her. And Clark starts to hear it too, and he starts looking into the tree to see what the noise is. So Clark's looking into the tree to see what that squeaking noise is, and sure enough, it's the squirrel. And what's funny is if you start, like when I was looking up the facts about this movie, when you Google Christmas Vacation, you know how Google has those little, suggestions right under it? One of them was squirrel. So we see the squirrel jump out, madness ensues. Clark's mom passes out on the floor. Everybody else is hiding, and the squirrel's running around, and Snots is chasing the squirrel. During all the screaming and commotion, Aunt Bethany can't hear it, and Uncle Lewis is asleep in the chair. Clark is trying to get everybody to stop screaming. He wants to know where Cousin Eddie is because he usually eats these damn things, and Catherine says, "Not since he found out they were high in cholesterol." Of course, we don't know where Cousin Eddie is right now, but he'll be coming back soon. But Clark's idea is to cover the squirrel with his jacket and hit it with a hammer, which makes somebody pass out again. It's awful. Well, they're looking for the squirrel, and all of a sudden, it's on Clark's back. So again, they're running. Everybody's running through the house, and Snots is chasing Clark, who has the squirrel on his back, and just absolutely destroying this beautiful house. We see him jumping through the door here, running up the steps, running back down the steps. At one point, a china hutch falls down. It's everything's completely destroyed. Same time, we see Todd and Margo arguing outside their house about going to confront Griswold about what all has been going on with the broken windows and just all the chaos that's happening. So she goes to knock on the door, and at the exact same time, Clark opens it, and out comes the squirrel and Snots right behind it. Absolutely screaming. She goes back home. He's like, "What happened?" She rears back, punches Todd right square in the face. Okay, so while that's happening, Clark comes down to find everybody, and he finds all the grandparents packing to leave. And he's like, no, we're not leaving this now. So, again, still completely losing his mind. He convinces them all to stay. At the same time, we see Cousin Eddie's RV pulling up to this big, beautiful house. So you know something's up. Clark's dad comes in to talk to him to get him to calm down and tells him to read the "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" for everybody and make it his tradition this year. So we see a nice family tradition, and once again you think, okay, everything's calming down. They can enjoy a nice story with the kids. The kids are really enjoying it. Santa will be there soon. All is right in the world. Well, during the reading of the story, Clark is reading the words and he says, and my boss, Mr. Shirley, with a big red bow. Cousin Eddie is leading Mr. Shirley into the house and says, ho, 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 you about ready to do some kissing? Mr. Shirley is absolutely freaking out. Meanwhile, Miss Shirley is calling the police saying that this big beastly man took Mr. Shirley with him, and we go back over to Clark's house. So Mr. Shirley's saying that he's going to press charges and they're going to go to jail for kidnapping, and Cousin Eddie's like, whoa, 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 this here was my idea. Mr. Shirley is trying to fire Clark. Clark's talking to him. He's like, listen, if you didn't want to give a Christmas bonus, it's fine. But when people are counting on them as part of their salary, well, it just sucks. And they talk to him a while about it, and he starts to understand, and he sees the family, and he says, take whatever you got last year, I think he calls him Greaseball again, Griswold, and add 20%. Clark is so surprised and so excited, and that's how that part ends. So they're celebrating, and we see all of a sudden all these SWAT officers break through the windows, and they bust in the door, and they come to save Mr. Shirley. So during this scene, we see that Ellen's hand is strategically placed on Clark's crotchal region, and that's another thing I kept reading about when I was seeing what all went on behind the scenes of this movie, is that was completely improvised, and that everybody found it really funny. Miss Shirley comes in to find out what happened and why her husband was kidnapped. He tells her about the not giving out bonus things, and she says, of all the low down dirty things, and ends up being on the Griswold side. And he's like, no, I reinstated it, it's fine. So then everybody runs outside because they think they see the Christmas star. The kids think that they see Santa, and Uncle Lewis says, that's not the Christmas star, it's a light from the sewage plant. Which reminds Clark of the toilet that Cousin Eddie pumped down the storm drain. As soon as Clark is realizing this, we see Uncle Lewis lighting his stogie. He throws the match down the storm drain, and everything explodes. We see the plastic Santa and his reindeer get shot up into space, and that is how the movie ends. Aunt Bethany is saying, play ball, and then we see everybody dancing and enjoying the holidays inside the house. For Clark and Ellen, who stayed outside to give each other a smooch, and then Clark is just looking into the sky and thinking what a wonderful Christmas it has been. And that is it. I love this movie so much. I really do. It's been so much fun to talk about it, fun to learn all those facts about it, and just revisit it and do a deep dive into it. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it too. Again, this was just my present to you to say thank you for all the channel support. I really appreciate it, and I truly hope that you have a wonderful holiday. I know it's hard this year, and a lot of us are separate from each other and all that, but I just wish you all the very best, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas. So thank you guys for everything. And I will talk to you again very soon. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.